Alright, so today we will be doing discussion 12, Identity Part 1, and we'll be approaching prompt 4 and going to try to do its entirety. So prompt 4 is, are you a person or a human? The expansion to the very first is, and the first one is Locke says that a person and a human, man, are not the same thing, and that you are essentially a person, which is a self conscious, rational being that can know itself as itself and can be separated from the body and substance in which it resides. Do you agree that you are essentially a person and not as essentially a human being? Well, I currently don't believe we have the ability to separate the consciousness from the human body. Um, Yet, I do believe that that technology might eventually become available to where maybe, like, I don't know, quote unquote, full dive VR experience, like, what's the name of that? In game or Ready Player One. So, like, something like that would be like the closest thing I can imagine to like real achievable future possibilities where we can put our consciousness into a video game of some sort or onto the web. We kind of have something a little similar with current VR technology, but yeah, like to have my body just essentially be laying down in a bed while my brain is off on an adventure somewhere. I do think that's the future of gaming technology. So it kind of approaches this topic. I just don't know how we're going to do it. I don't think we're anywhere close to actually achieving it. I don't think it's. I think it would be cool to happen in my lifetime, but I really don't think it will be. Let's see here. We'll go into part B. In various real life medical scenarios, a human continues to live while the former psychological person is irreversibly gone. This can include permanent coma, permanent vegetative state, and much more commonly, but less absolutely, severe dementia, severe stroke, and other conditions that take away memory and bring personality changes. To what extent would you say that the patient in such a scenario is no longer the same person, or that the person is gone? Does this tell us something about the ethics of continued treatment for such patients? So, when it comes to patient, alright, so I'm going to speak as someone with severe PTSD and major traumatic brain injury. I think that as long as they are displaying motor functions and some sort of cognitive recognizable ability to know where they are sometimes at least, they're there. And that's just me and the ethics of this, my personal belief. I do think when it comes to people in coma slash vegetative states, there has to come a point where it is kindness, right? To pull the plug. Again, personal belief. It's something that I've had to do with a heavy heart with my own grandmother. So there's that. So when we start weighing this into like the real human like cost of what it is we're saying, the ethics say delay death, right, for as long as possible. I guess is one of the standard practices, but I would say in suffering, it would be the more ethical solution. Not necessarily saying I believe in like assisted suicide, go complete Kevorkian about it, but for the elder and the inept, the vegetative, the dementia patient, if there's a kind way and a humane way to do it where they don't suffer at the end or they feel much less pain, then I do think that there's something to that to be approached, but I'm not quite the person to make that decision where I am at in my life currently. Wow, that one sucked. Alright. Does this relate to the abortion debate or related questions about infanticide? Did you used to be a fetus or a baby? If you are only a person in Locke's sense, then apparently not. Is a fetus or a baby something that becomes a person or something that spawns a person? How would you make sense of these concepts and relationships? So, because my brain function can determinately be classified as starting in utero, right? We can measure some brain function in a fetus, technically, pre-birth. I think in the last trimester or so is when we can measure some real brain activity. That is about the time I think a fetus achieves the first level of personhood or humanhood, at least. I think that a baby, I think, yeah, and at that point, when brain activity really gets going, I think that's when we become a person, right? Or at least when we become the beginning of the us. When we take in our first real sensory data and have judgment, does it soothe? Does it upset? Whatever our first, I wouldn't call it a thought, but feeling, first real emotion, is the first level of humanhood, at least, of what it means to be human. And then I think when we make our first true conscious decision is when we achieve personhood, cognitively speaking. So I don't know if you've seen some of these videos of people put down certain stuffed animals. We'll use Pokemon since that's huge in pop culture, right? They'll put down the starter Pokemons from the parents' favorite generation of Pokemon and put the baby in front of the three stuffed animals, and the baby chooses which stuffed animal is its starter Pokemon, right? With no real understanding, all it really sees, to the baby is just, a soft plushy thing with bright colors. So it's just choosing whichever one, is aesthetically the most pleasing. It has no relation to the characters or anything. But it is still a cognitive choice that the baby is making at that point. So, something like that is I would call that the first, at least, demonstration of cognitive personhood, at the most basic level. But that's something I think even a dog or a cat or a dolphin could do. So there's also that. But yeah. Alright, so to continue. From the scientific biological point of view, we are animals that can represent themselves as something more than animals. Can it be that our ability to represent or imagine ourselves as something more than animals make it true that we are something more than animals? Ooh. No, I don't think so. Again, this is me personally because, well, we can all die, right? Just like animals. If you stab me, I bleed and possibly die. If I stab an animal, it can bleed and possibly die. So there's that, fundamentally, we are still animals. At the end of the day, humans are just meat sacks with brains that are wandering around looking for food, shelter, and comfort. And we just have really advanced ways of achieving those things. So, um, for whatever it's worth, no, I don't really. I put us on top of the food chain. I think we are the apex predator, due to our cognitive ability and our ability to, hit things that are really, really far away. So there's that. We are apex, but I do not think we are that much different. Uh, Now going on to E. Could other animals also have corresponding selves as persons? Could your cat or dog be a psychological being apart from its biological animal self? What about animals that pass the mirror test, such as great apes, elephants, and dolphins? Might they be or have psychological selves apart from their animal selves? Personally, I actually think this is possible. I do actually think that animals can have psychological selves. I don't think they all do. I don't know if they all do. Like, I'm not an animal expert, but I definitely believe it's possible. I believe elephants definitely do, that's for sure. Because they demonstrate all sorts of, like, very ritualistic behaviors around things like the moon and death and birth. Like, they have, like, celebration and mourning and ritualistic, like, dance-like movements for the moon, for moon phases. They have ways to communicate at long distances. They have language and dialects that we picked up. Humpback whales have dialects and language, and same with, other animals out there in the world. Like, I believe that there are some species of animals that have developed like a true psychological self. That maybe not quite in the same degree or the same cognitive within the same cognitive capability as we humans have. But, like, I don't know, I've seen dogs do some pretty impressive things with talking boards, right? So maybe we're there. Maybe dogs are there. Maybe dogs are achieving personhood. Still early stage, but yeah, you got dogs that can essentially speak in full sentences with speaking boards, and are doing so coherently. And it's not quite the Chinese machine scenario. This dog knows that pressing, this button says, "Hey, Mom, can we go outside? Hey, Mom, go outside, please." Like, I've seen videos of that, pre, like, major AI developments. So maybe dogs are achieving that. Just a thought.